You're listening to Two Old Chuffs, a tale of two hospices. I'm Tamsin Thomas.
And I'm Gina Stones.
Gina, it is so good to hear your xylophone back in action. How are you?
I feel my xylophone is a little rusty, but we're okay now at this end. We're fine. It's good to hear you too, Mrs.
So here we are, not actually able to sit in the same room, which feels really odd. No eye contact. Where are you?
I'm in an office just behind reception at Mount Edgecombe. Have a very nice outlook out the window, and lots of bees, I notice, are around today. So I have a nice outlook today, but in the hospice at Mount Edgecombe.
Lovely. And I'm sitting in my kitchen in Cornwall. I'm looking out on the garden. I've noticed more bees. The birds have really taken over the garden now. I've got blackbirds and little thrushes, all sorts of things. And at the weekend, I had a squirrel visit. I have never seen a squirrel in the garden before.
That's quite impressive, I have to say.
Having said that, how are the squirrels at Mount Edgecombe Hospice, who are usually enormously fat because they get fed so well by our patients and their families?
And they are still here and well fed and round the other side of the hospice. So people are still bringing in bird feed and nuts, and they're still no problem there, I don't think, with anybody disappearing.
Fantastic. But, Gina, this is a very odd world we're in. Let's explain. That's why we're sitting in two different places. Our lives, in a way, have been turned upside down. I can't begin to imagine how different the life must be for you and for all those key workers who are still operating on our front lines.
Yeah, it is very different for us here at the hospice, and different in lots of ways, really. So where we would normally try and have a real kind of homely environment, lots of our, some would say clutter, some would say nice little decorative bits have been taken down so that we can easily clean. So our reception areas look a lot more stark than they probably have done before. And also we've got a few more rules and regulations that we need to follow to keep everybody safe. So, we've reduced the amount of visitors. We're working with our volunteer colleagues on the desk. And the other thing I think that's really stark for me is the fact that we've got fewer people around, and that's really different for here. The chat's still there, but it's different. So there are a lot more closed doors, empty offices. But the people that are here are in really good spirits, and, keeping each other buoyed and going. So, yes, it's changed, but we're kind of making the best of it, really, in what is a really odd situation for all of us.
Because you couldn't have maybe you could have kind of predicted a pandemic, but you surely couldn't have predicted the way this would pan out.
I think it has taken people by surprise. I think it's the fact as well that everybody is staying in and at home, and our roads are quieter, and our usual practices of shopping and leisure have really changed very, very quickly. And I think that's the same with staff here. Actually you're getting used to changes at work and changes at home, and people that you would normally see without a blink. You've really got to think about now how you're going to keep in touch with people, and that's really quite hard.
Yeah, and that, my mind is constantly with my colleagues, like your good self, who have to go to work, have to be there, want to be there, even though we're all being told stay at home, don't go out. I just think it's remarkable, just within our charity, at how much compassion and kindness there is.
I think you're very right, and I think it's also I know how difficult it's been to have some of those conversations about some of our staff who are on furlough, or some of those staff who have to work from home because they have underlying health issues. And actually that brings all sorts into the front of people's minds when you're having to have those tricky conversations, because actually people like to keep work and home very separate often. And this kind of brings lots of those ways of working and reminders into the forefront. So yeah, it's not been easy, but I think it's really important that we still as an organisation can keep in touch with those people.
Do Do you know, I have to say, for me, and I'm a person with an underlying health issue, so I'm at home, but thank goodness I'm able to continue working.
Yeah.
Work has been a saving grace because I'm a firm believer in routine, and it's routine that has helped. Plus, I can only work day to day. I tried to look into the future and I got quite scared, so I came back to the here and now.
Yeah.
Work has been brilliant, but though where I'm able to talk to my colleagues, people like you, using systems like Skype or whatever, there is an element of loneliness.
Yeah.
Because we're pack people, aren't we?
Yeah, I think we are, and you gravitate to people, and you can't have that same contact. And I've had conversations with the nursing teams here, with in the staff room, and the very fact that you can't sit and hold somebody's hand in the same way, or you can't give somebody a cuddle if they're feeling, kind of under the weather, and people are very aware of that need to social distance, and it's very alien to what we do a lot of the time, and you're having to nurse in very different ways.
And that must be so hard, given the nature of the care that we offer, which is to people who are terminally ill. They're at the end of their lives. They're surrounded by people who are having to cope with their loved one being at the end of their life.
Yeah, and I think also, we're asking people to identify key visitors, so we're not having lots of people around to visit, so families have to think about that very carefully, and also we want people to have discussions, and we want to make it as right as we can for the end of life for people, because actually that's a lasting memory, and we're very aware that might be very different for lots of people during this episode of coronavirus.
So every day must be different.
It is, yeah. It's as I say, it's much quieter. The rules and the suggestions from the government and from the World Health Organization around things like PPE and around best practice are changing the whole time. I've just come off a call with our chief exec from Hospice UK with I think upwards of 200 other hospices on the call, and people are asking questions all the time about funding, about ongoing sustainability of organisations, because people are worried. And then there's the practicalities of things like PPE, we're experiencing the same issues that our very frontline colleagues are in hospitals, in that actually it's not easy for us to get the kit that we might need. So we're being very careful, we're risk assessing, we want people to be safe, and we want our staff to be safe, because actually they're what kind of keeps us going and are able to provide that care.
It's just different priorities as well, isn't it?
Yeah, it certainly is. I think we've spent an awful lot of time trying to get equipment, and it's been very difficult at times, but actually we've had some fantastic support from our community. I have a regular supplier now of people who are providing, if they're making gin, they're making sanitizer from the gin, or they're doing, Healey's have been fab with their, kind of the byproducts of what they make. People are really being creative in how they're supporting the big effort, really, which is wonderful.
I'm keeping a kindness register for the charity, and what's great is it's not just about the obvious things like hand sanitizer. I keep thinking about the vending man who came in and just presented you with a whole load of Diet Coke and some hula hoops.
Yes, no, absolutely, and that's been wonderful. You're never quite sure what's going to come through the door, and lots of people don't want acknowledgement.
No, that anonymous thing is a big thing, isn't it? It's just random acts of kindness, and I've never seen so many Easter eggs. I mean, our key workers must be growing by the minute. Yeah,
we've distributed a lot of those out to local colleagues as well. So yeah, absolutely.
You're listening to Two Old Chuffs, a tale of two hospices. I'm Tamsin Thomas.
And I'm Gina Stones.
And we're just regrouping really after what's been an enormous jolt to the whole country, to the whole world. So Gina and I haven't chatted on a podcast for a while, and it's so nice to sort of catch up and find out how we're both living, which is very differently at the moment. And one of the things for me, Gina, that's been interesting is how our charity and our key workers have adapted services to try and keep going and to try and keep in touch with folk who we just can't risk being in contact with face to face right now.
Yeah, we've had lots of those. I think because huge amounts of, well, practically all of our work is always face to face. And you'll remember that we had a big push a couple of years ago to try and get our services and support into the community, to support more people, to be able to kind of share the service that we offer here actually in the buildings. And so I think that the teams have been really quite quick and quite flexible with what they've offered. So, we are looking at how we can support people that were perhaps, going to our friendship cafes through phone or video support. We've got our education team have put some education information online so that actually our colleagues who might have been coming for, kind of routine education can access some of that online. And also, things like, our complementary therapy teams, physio teams have been offering online kind of tutorials really on how to kind of sit, move, breathe, massage, all those things that we do and we know actually brings comfort to people. We're trying to think about how we can get those onto the system. So, we've had great support from our tech team, and we've been able to do a lot of that, which is really, really quite impressive.
Have you done the self-help relaxation sessions that are on our website?
I have.
And just brilliant.
It does feel quite strange when you're doing it on your own, but actually it really is helpful, and you very quickly, I think, feel the benefit of that. It's lovely.
It really is, and you don't have to be someone who would be coming to us as a patient. I mean, every couple of days I do one of the sessions in particular because the therapist's voice particularly suits my ear, and it just brings me back down and lets me calm and chill out. And I just think, wow, these are things that I hope we'll carry on doing. That we must have legacies that come out of this, mustn't we?
I think we will, and I think it'll change a lot of the ways that we work. And I think, as an organisation, we were quite sceptical or scared, I'm not quite sure which is the word really, of things like Skype and Zoom and meetings at a distance. But actually, they've become a real lifeline for us, and it's really important to, see people on screen rather than just pick up the phone and talk to one person, to know that you've got kind of a group of people, at the end of the screen line is really good. And I think it will change how we work.
And I love the fact that even where we're all working remotely and the people I work with are in their kitchens, there's still this collective enthusiasm, and there's still people firing out ideas and, jumping up and down and doing the things they would have done if we were all sat in one office together. I think that's a triumph. Just shows that we can do it.
Interesting to see, where people are and their backgrounds and their houses, which you'd never get to see.
Yes.
I have to say, this feeds that little bit of nosy neighbour in me, really.
Yeah, well, I read an article not that long ago, actually, because as you know, I've been a remote worker for a while, and it said, just be very aware of what's behind you when you're on a call. And every time I go to make a call, I look behind me, just make sure there's nothing sinister. Yeah, exactly. And then, of course, I don't know how much you see. I know you're so frantically busy because our services, our hospices are still open 24/7. But are you aware of what people in the wider charity are doing? I mean, have you seen the head of fundraising's haircut?
Yes, I have. I did sponsor our head of fundraising because actually I think, like all of us, my fringe is getting a bit unruly, and I was thinking, well, actually, yes, I'm overdue a haircut, and I will happily put into Ollie's pot. But his Mohican is particularly splendid. I did see it in person when it came on the screen, and it's quite impressive, really.
Yeah, it is. And he's wearing it with such pride. So every time he comes up on a Skype call, I just giggle because I'm not expecting that. That's our very creative, I thought, and it was relatives of a patient we looked after run a creative agency, and they came up with the great Spend on Care, Not Hair initiative. And now we're all signing up for the next virtual fundraising event for our charity, which is Your Marathon, Your Pace.
Yes, our chief executive just told me he signed up this morning.
He has. That's amazing. And I've signed. I still laugh because I keep telling people I've signed up to run a marathon. I never thought I'd say those words because I'm 1 year off a very big birthday.
Are you?
Yes, and I'll celebrate that 1 year off birthday during this 4-week period that you have to run this, or you can walk or run or jog the marathon. But I can't believe I'm saying it.
You are. So it's got to happen.
Yes, exactly. But that's, I think, amazing as well, that it's not just the front line and the key workers there. It's the people who understand the need to try and bring the money in to keep our charity going are coming up with such amazing ideas.
Yeah, it's hugely important, isn't it, really? I think, as we kind of get through this, start to come out the other side, it's going to be so important to think about how we get our business up and running again, and we need that support. And the people of Cornwall have been fantastic.
Yes, here, and long may they be so. So I've talked about my coping techniques, like routine, like work, thank goodness, and going for a little run, and about not looking too far into the future. Equally, I've really controlled my news watching. I mean, I love news. I used to be a journalist, and I want to soak it up, but it actually started to scare me. I convinced myself that grim things were going to happen. What are your coping techniques?
Well, I'm coming into Mount Edgecombe most days of the week, so my kind of working routine is pretty much the same, really. Although I don't wander around as much in the units. And while I'm here, my colleague Ali has based herself down at St Julia's, so we're kind of spreading the work between us. So my work routine is pretty much the same, but I've kind of, my husband particularly has got his greenhouse into action this time. So we're doing quite a bit of gardening. And also, kind of taxing our brains really with how we get rid of the grass that we've cut now that the tips are closed. That seems to take quite a lot of
Do you know, I am not a gardener, and I can at last say that there's a reason why, and that is that I run in my garden. It's not a big garden, but we've never done anything to it. So it's grass and then hedges round, and I've got a track that I've forged now, a brown track round the garden. But at least I don't have to go around flower beds or greenhouses or anything like that, because I get dizzy enough as it is.
And I have to say, I've used the time very much as a bit of a kind of sorting out, time as well. So for when the shops do open, I do have some significant contributions to make to our hospice shops, because actually it's been quite therapeutic going through cupboards and sorting out and thinking actually, I haven't used that for a while. Let's have a bit of a fresh start, really.
Yeah, I'm doing the same, and I think we've been saying to people, if you have got stuff because I'm sure a lot of people are doing the same, keep it, hold on to it. Absolutely. If you possibly can, and we'll let you know when we can accept those donations again. They're going to be invaluable to us. Absolutely invaluable. Yeah. And in terms of, I always think it's important to look at, as best we can, at positives, which is difficult when we're all in lockdown and still very worried by this. But I think it's important to acknowledge them. So at a minor level, in the road I live in, we've got a WhatsApp group. And it's fabulous because everyone keeps in touch, and someone will say, I'm going to the chemist today. Can I pick up anything for anyone? Or, hi, so-and-so, are you all right? We haven't seen you for a couple of days. But in terms of Cornwall Hospice Care, what sort of positives are you happy you'll be able to celebrate at the end of this?
I think for us, it's been a real achievement keeping our beds open at the same level that we have. So, as I talked to you today, we've kind of got 17 patients across both sites, with a couple of patients due in today. So we're keeping those high bed numbers open, which is great to support our community colleagues. And I think another thing that's been hugely helpful and will be can't can't change really is that those actually, those links that we've made with community colleagues. So, both new contacts and existing, but actually there's a lot. I think when there's something big like COVID, actually it takes away a lot of red tape, it takes away a lot of process, and it means that things can happen really quickly when you've got a group of forward-thinking and like-minded people that want to make it better for those people who are likely to be undergoing a difficult time. And I guess one example that I'd share with you, which I think you're aware of, Tamsin, that we've talked about before, is the Cornwall Bereavement Network, the network that was set up in January. And, we've been able to actually get a phone line together from our community services team here, so we can kind of triage and forward those calls on to the right people, which is fantastic for the people of Cornwall because it means that they have a clear number that they ring and we can help to direct them to the right place, which actually was up and running in probably less than a week, which is unheard of, really. So, thanks to those people that have been able to help get that going. But, you can't do that on your own. You need people to be able to support that, and certainly the Bereavement Network, which is, I think they have 85 plus organisations as part of that network, really saw the need and wanted to do what best they could to support their patients and clients in the community. And so really, I think that'll be a huge help. So that's just one example really of something that I think will go on into the future and will help us as an organisation be part of that bigger picture.
And I'm really, really pleased about that because collaboration is such an important thing. And, more and more, I think collaboration will become important to everyone beyond what's happening to us all now. And for me, the other thing is this is a difficult time, not just if you become bereaved as part of this, and that must be harrowing. But actually, that time where you're at home, I lost my dad in November. I've thought about him more and not been upset, but got a bit tearful about him in this period. Maybe because death is talked about more, or maybe I've just got time to reflect. I'm jolly grateful that he's not alive to see this, because for an elderly gentleman, it would have been horrifically worrying. But I do think bereavement on a much wider scale will be something everyone will feel.
I think it is, and actually you're right. You were talking earlier about the amount of news that there is and how frequently those figures around death are repeated. And whilst we spent a long time trying to get people to think and talk with families about how to prepare for end of life, actually there is an awful lot of talk at the moment about those death figures, and really it's about kind of remembering that actually there is a lot of death that happens across the country anyway, and that the numbers that we're seeing kind of include those deaths. But it's just that I think you're right, it's just in our forefront, and it does make you think. It makes you think very much about, people that may be distant or that, are having to self-isolate on their own, or and people are very vulnerable.
Yes, gosh.
Vulnerable.
Yes.
Yeah. But there are lots of places where people can go for help, and I think it's really important that it's not just about using the machine, using the websites. It's about telephone calls and being able to speak to somebody. And, as I say, we're very lucky in Cornwall that actually we have lots of local support available to be able to do that.
And I still feel we've got a neighbourly approach in Cornwall.
Yes.
We do seem to look after or keep in touch with each other, don't we?
Yeah, no, we do. I think you're right.
Which is great. Well, I'm so glad that you're well. I'm delighted that gardening has come back into your life. For me, I am trying to revive my very poor piano skills.
Are you?
And my neighbour will tell you that if he hears me playing Jingle Bells once more on a piano that's desperately out of tune, because it's an old upright that came from a pub in the East End of London. I think I've driven a few people batty, and I haven't even started on my cornet practice. So. There we are. That's for
That's
another
one for
day.
later then. Yeah, yeah.
Well, I keep threatening to take it and play it on Thursday when the clap for carers happened.
Do it.
I can't
Just do it.
I can't do a tune yet, or at least I can do one, but it's not brilliant, and I suffer from nerves, so that always spoils it. But never mind. Gina, it's been lovely to speak to you. We will speak again, no doubt, I'm sure. You're listening to Two Old Chuffs, A Tale of Two Hospices.